Brr. She was auctioned as a breeder, but the Alpha King's dead Luna's name was tattooed on her wrist. The air in the grand hall was thick with smoke and the scent of burning torches. Aberration. Shadows danced across the high stone walls, and the murmurs of the gathered nobles echoed like whispers of forgotten secrets. At the center of it all, a wooden platform had been set up for the evening's event. Brr. The auction had begun, and the crowd's eyes glimmered with curiosity and greed. Alara's heart pounded inside her chest, each beat sounding louder than the last. Aberration. She stood among others, all carefully dressed in their finest clothes, their expressions tense with the same anxiety that gnawed at her. The silk dress she wore was pale, almost blending with the candlelight, but the black tattoo on her wrist could not be hidden. Brr. It curled like smoke over her skin, the letters forming a name. Lyra. It was the name of the dead Luna, the mate of the Alpha King who had ruled the northern territories before the current ruler. Alara did not know how the tattoo had appeared, or why it burned faintly under the torchlight, but she could feel its weight every time someone glanced at her. The whispers began almost immediately, traveling like wildfire through the hall. Aberration. Is that the Luna's name? One noble muttered. Him. Impossible, another replied. She is long dead. Alara tried to shrink back, but she could not escape the curious eyes. Each step she took on the wooden platform felt heavy. Her palms were clammy, and her stomach twisted into knots. The auctioneer, a man with a smooth voice and sharp eyes, began speaking, calling out her name as if it were a commodity. She felt herself tremble, wondering if this would be the night that her life changed forever, or ended. And it did. Aberration. Among the crowd, one figure watched her with an intensity that made her knees weak. Kalen, the new Alpha King, stood tall at the edge of the hall, his dark cloak brushing the floor, and his eyes fixed on her wrist. There was no warmth in his gaze, only a sharp, unreadable curiosity. Bah! He had heard the rumors, of course. Whispers of the dead Luna returning in some strange, impossible way. Aberration. But seeing the tattoo, glowing faintly, made the air around him thicken. He felt a pull he could not explain, a connection reaching through time beyond death. Aberration. But for Alara, the words blurred. The noblemen and women called out bids, but all she could hear was the rhythm of her heartbeat and the silent voice of the tattoo pulsing against her skin. Brrr. The others seemed ordinary, human, but she felt different. Strange visions flitted behind her eyes. Moonlit forests, a pack of howling wolves, and a woman with eyes like hers, calling her name. Aberration. Kalen stepped closer, silent as a shadow. His presence was magnetic, commanding, and terrifying all at once. Alara could feel the heat of his gaze even from across the room, and it made her skin prickle. He did not speak, but when he lifted a hand and pointed at her wrist, the tattoo seemed to burn brighter. Brrr. The auctioneer's voice broke through her thoughts, calling for the final bids. Yet, Alara could not focus on the mundane numbers. She could feel the weight of destiny pressing down. The hall fell silent for a moment, and all eyes turned toward the Alpha King. Kalen's voice, deep and steady, cut through the quiet. Stop! The room froze. Nobles glanced at each other, confused, some fearful, others excited. Break. Kalen moved toward the platform, each step deliberate, and the crowd parted without command. He stopped in front of Alara and knelt, bringing his face level with her wrist. There. His dark eyes studied the tattoo, narrowing slightly as if searching for some hidden truth.
Breath. This name, he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. The dead Luna, she speaks through you. Elara froze. She did not know what to say.
The tattoo pulsed under his gaze as if alive, its glow reflected in the Alpha King's eyes. Fear and awe mingled in her chest, making it hard to breathe. Inspiration. She opened her mouth to answer, but no sound came. Colin straightened, towering over her again, and the room seemed to hold its breath. Brrr. "You will come with me," he said finally, his tone leaving no room for refusal. The nobles murmured behind them, but Kalin ignored them all. Brrr. His attention was entirely on Elara. Elara's legs trembled as she stepped down from the platform. Inspiration. She felt the eyes of the court burn into her back, each gaze heavy with suspicion and intrigue. The weight of the tattoo seemed to grow heavier, pulling her toward a fate she could not understand. She did not know why she was marked, or why the Alpha King had chosen her. But something inside her told her she had no choice. The corridors of the castle were cold and dark. Inspiration. Torches flickered along the stone walls, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch and twist like living things. Kalin walked beside her, silent, his presence both protective and intimidating. Inspiration. Elara felt a strange tension in the air, as if the castle itself were alive, watching them, waiting for something to happen. Finally, they reached a small chamber at the edge of the castle. It was simple but elegant, with a single window letting in pale moonlight. Kalin gestured for her to sit, and she obeyed, though her hands shook as they rested on her lap. He stood by the window, his dark silhouette framed by the moonlight, and finally spoke again. "Tell me," he said, "how did you come to bear this mark?" "The Luna is dead. How are you?" Brask. "Connected to her?" Elara swallowed hard. I do not know," she admitted. Her voice was soft, almost lost in the shadows. "It appeared on my wrist when I was very young. I never understood it, never knew its meaning."
Kalen's eyes narrowed, studying her face.
There was a flicker of something there. Curiosity, perhaps even hope. "Do you feel it?" he asked. Inspiration. "The power? The pull of the moon?" Elara hesitated. Inspiration. She had always felt something strange whenever the full moon rose. Dreams of wolves and forests haunted her, visions of the dead Luna calling her name. But she had never dared to speak of them. "Yes," she whispered. "Sometimes. But I do not understand it." Kalen's expression softened just slightly, and he stepped closer. Inspiration. "Then you must learn," he said. "You are marked for a reason, Elara." Inspiration. Something old and powerful stirs in you. Inspiration. Elara looked at him, fear and fascination warring inside her. The tattoo pulsed a gentle heat against her skin, and she felt as if it were alive, awakening for the first time. Something deep within her shifted, a connection she could not name, a bond with the Alpha King and the Luna she had never met. Outside the chamber, the wind howled through the castle towers, carrying the distant sound of wolves. Inspiration. Not from cold, but from the weight of destiny settling around her shoulders. She did not know what the future held, only that it would not be ordinary. Her life, once ordinary and hidden, was now entwined with the fate of the Alpha King, and perhaps with the spirit of a Luna who had died long ago. Kalin turned to face her, his dark eyes gleaming in the moonlight. "Rest tonight," he said softly, though his voice carried authority. "Tomorrow We begin the journey that the tattoo demands. You will learn, and so will I. Ration. Elara nodded, unable to speak, her mind spinning with questions. Why her? Why now? And what did the dead Luna want from her? As Kalen left the room, the door closing behind him with a soft click, Elara's gaze fell to her wrist. Brrr. The tattoo pulsed one last time before fading slightly, as if to promise that this was only the beginning. The moonlight caught it, making it glow faintly in the darkness, a silent beacon of a fate she could not escape. Brrr. She lay on the narrow bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind and the faint whispers in her mind. Visions flickered before her eyes. Forests bathed in silver light, wolves with eyes like fire, and a woman, strong, graceful, and sorrowful. Beration. Lyra. Elara closed her eyes, and for the first time she understood that her life had changed forever. She was no longer just a girl lost in the world. She was the bearer of a mark, a link to a power that had once ruled and died, and perhaps she was the key to something greater than herself. Outside, the castle slept under the watchful gaze of the moon, but inside Elara's heart, a storm had begun. And she knew, with a certainty that made her blood run cold and hot at the same time, that the night had only just begun. And somewhere, deep in the shadows, Kalen watched from afar, feeling the pull of the tattoo and the stirrings of a destiny he could neither control nor resist. The dead Luna's name burned on her wrist, Beration, and with it, a fate that would change the kingdom forever. The first light of dawn seeped through the narrow window of the chamber, casting silver stripes across the cold stone floor. Beration. Elara awoke with a start, her hand automatically brushing over her wrist. The tattoo, faint and calm in the morning light, seemed almost peaceful, but she could feel its pulse deep inside her skin, like a heartbeat she had never known. The previous night's events replayed in her mind. The auction, Kalen's piercing gaze, the way he had traced the tattoo with his fingers and whispered her destiny. She shivered, both frightened and curious. Beration. Who was she, if the dead Luna spoke through her? And why did the Alpha King care so much? The castle corridors were quiet as she left the chamber, her steps tentative on the cold stones. Kalen had not left her side the entire night, though he had given her space. His presence lingered like a shadow, heavy and unyielding, and even in silence, she could feel the tension between them.
"Good morning," Kalen said from the shadows of the hall, his deep voice low but steady.
Bree. He stepped closer, his dark cloak brushing the floor. Did you sleep? Elara nodded, her throat dry.
Beration. I tried.
He studied her for a moment, his dark eyes narrowing slightly. The tattoo? Does it hurt? No, she whispered.
Brit. But I feel it. Always. As if it is waiting for something. Kalen's lips pressed into a thin line.
"That waiting is not idle."
It has purpose. The dead Luna's mark is not just a name, Brit. It is a bond, a memory, and a warning. Elara's heart skipped a beat. She had known, somewhere deep inside, that the tattoo was more than ink, but hearing Kalen say it aloud made it real. She wanted to ask him what it meant, how it worked, and why it had chosen her, but the words stuck in her throat. She was afraid of what she might hear. The day passed slowly. Kalen kept her close, guiding her through the castle's twisting halls, the libraries filled with old scrolls, and the training yards, where his guards practiced sword and spear. Everywhere she went, whispers followed. Servants glanced at her wrist, soldiers sneered quietly, and nobles stared with suspicion. Brr. Ilara tried to focus on the mundane tasks he gave her, observing the records of the Alpha King's lineage, learning the history of the clans, and practicing the control of her movements in the training yard. But her mind always drifted back to the tattoo, to the visions it sometimes sent her. Forests bathed in silver light, wolves howling to the moon, and a woman with sorrowful eyes calling her name, Lyra. Kalen noticed her distraction, Beration. "Do you see them again?" he asked one evening when the sun had set and the torches burned low. Ilara hesitated. Beration. Yes, she admitted softly. The wolves. Beration. The woman. Lyra. Beration. Kalen's expression darkened. She was powerful, he said quietly, almost to himself. Stronger than any Luna I have known. Her bond with the pack. Beration. It was legendary. And now it calls to you. Ilara looked up at him, fear and awe mingling in her chest. Why me? Beration. I don't understand. I am nothing like her. Kalen knelt beside her, his hand brushing against hers in a gesture that felt strange and intimate. No, he said, voice low, you are not her. But you carry her echo.
And echoes are dangerous, Ilara. They stir things that should remain still.
Beration. The tension between them grew, invisible yet powerful. Ilara found herself drawn to him despite the fear that his authority inspired. Colin was both protector and threat, commanding and uncertain, and every glance he gave her made her pulse quicken. She wanted to speak, to ask him questions, to understand the strange bond between them, but the words were swallowed by the unspoken tension in the room.
Night fell, and Kalen led her to the castle balcony. The moon hung low in the sky, casting silver light over the mountains and forests beyond.
Beration. Wolves howled in the distance, a mournful sound that made Ilara's skin prickle. She looked down at her wrist, where the tattoo glowed faintly in the moonlight. It stirs with the moon, Kalen said, his voice low, almost reverent. He stepped closer, so close that she could feel the warmth of his body and the faint scent of cedar and smoke clinging to his cloak. Beration.
Do you feel it?
Yes, Ilara whispered, like it's alive. Beration. It is alive, he said. And it is calling. The dead Luna. She wants something. Or she wants someone. Beration. And she may have chosen you for a reason that even I cannot yet understand.
Ilara felt a chill run through her.
The wind whipped around him, tugging at her hair and dress. She looked at Kalen, his face shadowed under the moonlight, and felt a strange mix of fear and longing. Beration. What will happen to me? She asked softly. Kalen's eyes darkened, and for a moment he looked like a man burdened by impossible choices. I do not know, he admitted. But I will protect you. And you must protect yourself. You are more important than you realize. Beration. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Ilara wanted to ask him what he meant, but a sudden sound interrupted them. Beration. From the forest below came a rustling, a whisper of movement. Wolves or something older? Beration. Her pulse quickened. Kalen's gaze snapped toward the sound, and his hand rested lightly on her wrist, over the tattoo. Beration. The glow intensified, and the hairs on her arms stood on end. Elara gasped. She could feel the pulse, stronger now, as if it were warning her, urging her to pay attention. Then, as quickly as it began, the sound vanished.
Kalen released her wrist, his expression unreadable. "It will not be safe here forever," he said.
The tattoo draws attention. Not all who notice it are kind. Some will come for you. For it. Elara's stomach twisted. Who? She asked. Kalen shook his head. Enemies of the pack. Bray. Rivals. Those who fear the power the Luna once held. They will see you as a threat. Or a prize. Break. Fear and a strange excitement coursed through her veins. She had never felt so small and yet so important in her life. Her life, which had been ordinary, had become tangled with something far greater, something she could not yet name. Days passed in a blur of study, training, and whispered conversations. Kalen taught her to move with purpose, to understand the history of the Luna, and to sense the power in the tattoo. She learned the old stories, the tales of the dead Luna, her bond with the Alpha King, and the battles fought to protect the pack. One evening, while Kalen was reviewing maps of the Northern Territories, Elara ventured to the balcony alone. The moonlight bathed her in silver, and she stared at the forest below, feeling the pulse of the tattoo. It was stronger tonight, more insistent. She closed her eyes, letting the visions wash over her. A silver wolf, eyes bright and piercing, circling in the moonlight. Lyra, the dead Luna, standing in a clearing, calling her name. Elara opened her eyes, and the air felt charged. She sensed Callan behind her before he spoke. "You see her again," he said, almost gently. "Yes," she admitted. "She is calling me." Kalen stepped closer, his hand brushing against hers again. Not touching, but close enough to make her skin tingle. "Then you must answer," he said. "But be careful." The dead do not always speak with kindness. They speak with power.
And power can consume you. Elara shivered, a mixture of fear and determination rising within her.
She did not understand what she was becoming or why the dead Luna's name burned on her wrist, but she knew one thing. She could not ignore it. Suddenly, a shadow moved in the forest below. Elara or men. Kalen moved instinctively, placing himself between her and the window, his presence a shield. "The tattoo," he whispered, his eyes dark with concern. "It has drawn them, and they are coming." Elara's heart raced. She did not know what awaited her. Attackers, rivals, or something supernatural. But she felt the tattoo thrumming against her skin like a drumbeat of destiny. She was no longer just a captive, no longer just a girl who had been auctioned and marked. She was something more. Something alive. Something powerful. The wind swept through the balcony, carrying the faint scent of the forest and the howl of distant wolves. Kalen's hand rested lightly on the railing, and his eyes never left hers. "Stay close," he commanded softly. "Tonight you will learn what it means to bear her mark, and you will see the shadows that follow you." Elara nodded, a mixture of fear and curiosity in her chest. She did not know what the night would bring, but for the first time she felt the pull of her destiny. and the bond with the Alpha King, stronger than she could have imagined. As the moon rose higher, casting silver light across the castle, the tattoo glowed brighter, and the whispers of the dead Luna stirred in her mind. She was not alone. And the forest, the shadows, and the wolves would soon reveal the first test of her courage. The mark of fate had awakened, and nothing would ever be the same again. The forest beyond the castle was alive with silver light as the moon climbed higher into the sky. Inspiration. Wolves moved silently among the trees, their eyes glinting, alert to every whisper of movement.
Elara followed Kaelin through the winding paths, her wrist glowing faintly in the moonlight, a constant reminder of the bond she carried.
She had learned much since arriving in the castle. The tattoo on her wrist was more than a mark. It was a connection to a power she had yet to fully understand. It pulsed when she was frightened, when she was curious, and sometimes, unexpectedly, when she thought of Kaelin. The Alpha King's presence had become a constant in her life, his gaze following her, his voice guiding her, and his actions protecting her from both the seen and unseen dangers of the night. Tonight, they had ventured into the forest for training, not with swords or weapons, but with control over their senses, over the subtle power that the dead Luna had left behind. Kaelin had explained that the tattoo was not merely a symbol. It was a link to the past, a key to understanding and controlling forces older than the current clans themselves. Elara paused under the canopy of silvered leaves, looking up at the pale moon. Bears. I feel it tonight, she said softly. Stronger than before. Oration. Like something is calling me deeper into the forest. Brr. Kaelin's expression darkened, his hand brushing gently against hers, not touching, but close enough that she felt a spark run through her veins. That is the pull of the Luna, he said quietly.
It is not a summons to play. It is a warning.
Inspiration. And perhaps an invitation. Bird. Elara swallowed hard. She wanted to step back, to run to the safety of the castle walls, but something inside her, the tattoo, or perhaps the echo of the Luna herself, urged her forward. She took a deep breath and followed Kaelin, whose calm presence reassured her even as tension coiled in her stomach. The deeper they went, the stronger the pulse of the tattoo became. It thrummed like a heartbeat in her wrist, sending shivers down her spine. Elara's vision blurred slightly, and for a moment she saw the forest differently, shadows shifting into shapes, the silver light of the moon reflecting off eyes that were not human. Wolves, yes, but larger than normal, their fur gleaming like silver under the moon, their howls harmonizing in a melody that resonated with her own heartbeat. Kaelin noticed her hesitation. Do not fear them, he said firmly, his voice steady yet soft. They will not harm you. They are drawn to the same energy that lives in your tattoo. The Luna's bond extends even beyond death, beyond form.
They know you are part of her legacy. Elara nodded, trying to calm the panic rising in her chest.
Her heart raced not only with fear but with something new, a sense of power and possibility. She could feel it rising inside her, something she had never experienced before. The tattoo throbbed with life, and the visions came faster now. The dead Luna standing in a clearing, her silver fur gleaming under the moonlight, eyes filled with sorrow and purpose. Elara! Kaelin's voice broke through her trance. Focus. Control it.
Feel it, but do not let it control you. She nodded again, this time with more determination.
Bereisha took a deep breath and centered herself, letting the pull of the tattoo guide her rather than overwhelm her. The vision softened, and she could see the forest clearly again. the path ahead illuminated by moonlight and shadows alike. Kaelin moved closer, his dark cloak brushing her arm. "You are stronger than you think," he said.
And you will need that strength soon, not only for yourself but for the kingdom, and for me.
Elara's stomach twisted at his words. She wanted to ask him what he meant, but before she could speak, a rustle in the bushes stopped them both. From the shadows emerged figures cloaked in black, their eyes glinting with malice. Rival clans. They had sensed the power in the tattoo and had come for it. And for her. Kaelin stepped in front of her, his stance wide, shoulders squared, radiating authority. "Back! Stay behind me," he commanded. "Do not move until I tell you." Alara's pulse quickened. She could see the danger, but she also felt the tattoo pulsing, as if urging her not to hide. Something deep within told her she was meant to act, to stand, not just to flee. The clan members circled, their movements silent yet predatory. Kaelin's hand hovered near his dagger, but he did not strike yet. He was testing them, calculating, waiting. Then Elara felt it, a surge of energy from the tattoo, warm and strong, coursing through her veins. It was like a flame awakening, a bond with the Luna herself giving her courage and clarity. Without thinking, she stepped forward, raising her wrist. The tattoo glowed brightly, a silver light that cut through the shadows. The attackers froze. Their eyes widened as if they recognized the power she now wielded. Wolves howled from the distance, as though announcing her awakening to the forest. Kaelin's eyes widened in surprise, then softened in pride. "Do not fear it," he said. "Let it guide you." Elara focused on the tattoo, feeling it flow through her. She did not strike, she did not attack, yet the attacker stepped back, uncertain, unnerved by the strength emanating from her. It was as if the Luna herself were standing behind her, lending her power, lending her presence. The clan members hesitated, then slowly retreated into the forest, their eyes still wary. Kaelin stepped forward, placing a protective hand on her shoulder.
You did well, he said, his voice low, a mixture of relief and something deeper, pride perhaps, or admiration. Elara looked at him, heart still racing, the glow of the tattoo fading slightly.
I didn't know I could do that, she whispered. Kaelin's expression softened. "You are not just a girl with a mark," he said. "You are part of her legacy. The Luna's strength lives in you.
And you will need it more than ever. The enemies of the pack are clever, patient, and ruthless.
They will not give up so easily." Elara nodded, her mind spinning with the implications. She had never felt such power, such connection to someone she had never met, to a woman who had lived and died long before her. And she had never felt such a bond with someone alive, someone as intense and commanding as Kaelin. The walk back to the castle was quiet. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the wolves silent, the night calm after the storm of tension. Not from physical exertion, but from the surge of power and emotion that had run through her.
Back in the castle, Kaelin guided her to a chamber near his own.
"Rest," he said. "You will need strength. Tomorrow, we begin training you to control this power, to understand it fully, and you must learn to trust yourself, and me." Elara nodded, her hand automatically brushing her wrist. The tattoo throbbed faintly, still warm from the energy she had released. She did not know how much she had drawn from it, or what dangers lay ahead. But she felt, for the first time, that she was not helpless. Brr. As Kaylin left, she sank onto the bed, staring at the ceiling. Her thoughts were a whirlwind of fear, excitement, and curiosity. Her head. She had glimpsed the power of the Luna, had felt its strength coursing through her veins, and she had faced danger and survived. The moonlight spilled across the room, catching the tattoo on her wrist. It pulsed softly, as if satisfied, but there was a hint of warning in its glow. Aberration. Something more awaited her. Something greater. Brett. Elara closed her eyes, letting the sensations of the night wash over her. She could feel Kaylin's presence even from a distance, protective and intense. She could feel the echoes of the Luna within her, guiding, warning, strengthening. And she could feel the pull of destiny, like a thread weaving her life into a pattern she could not yet see. Aberration. Outside, the forest whispered under the silver light of the moon. Wolves prowled silently. Shadows moved, and the night held secrets that would reveal themselves in time. Elara was no longer merely a girl with a mark. She was a bearer of a legacy, a force to be reckoned with, and the bond with the Alpha King had begun to transform into something more, something neither of them fully understood yet. And somewhere in the shadows a voice, soft and haunting, whispered her name. Lyra, welcome home. The next challenge awaited, and the pull of the tattoo promised that nothing would ever be the same again. The moon hung high above the castle, spilling silver light over the stone battlements. Its glow painted the world in shades of magic, as if the night itself were alive, waiting for what was to come. Elara stood at the edge of the balcony, her wrist warm with the pulsing glow of the tattoo. The mark of the dead Luna was no longer faint. It shone like molten silver, alive with energy that she could feel in every nerve.
Kaylin stepped beside her, silent but commanding, his cloak rustling gently in the wind.
His dark eyes scanned the horizon, alert to every movement in the forest below. Wolves prowled in the distance, their howls harmonizing with the rhythm of the wind, a reminder of the bond between the living and the spirits of the past.
You feel it tonight, Kaylin said softly, his voice almost drowned by the whispering wind. The Luna's power.
It is strongest now, and with it comes the greatest danger and the greatest choice. Elara nodded, though her heart raced. She had trained, studied, and learned to control the pulse of the tattoo. But this felt different. The pull inside her was more urgent, more insistent. It was no longer a whisper or a vision. It was a command, urging her to step into the legacy she had inherited. I am ready, she said, though her voice trembled. I will do what I must. Kaylin's gaze softened just slightly, and he placed a protective hand over hers. I do not doubt your strength, but strength alone is not enough. You must choose wisely. Tonight you face those who would claim the Luna's power for themselves. And you must trust not only the tattoo, but yourself. Aberration. And me. The tension in the air was palpable. Elara felt the forest around them holding its breath, the wolves silent, the wind still. It was as if the world waited for her to act, for her destiny to unfold. Then, from the shadows of the trees, figures emerged, cloaked, silent, and dangerous. Aberration. The rival Alpha, a man whose name was spoken in fear among the clans, had come with his followers seeking to claim the power of the Luna and the Alpha King. They had tracked her, sensed the energy in her tattoo, and now they had arrived at the heart of the kingdom. Aberration. Kaylin stepped forward, his posture wide and commanding. They are here for the mark, he said, his voice low, almost growling. And they will not hesitate to take it. Elara felt the pulse of the tattoo surge through her, a living thing entwined with her heartbeat. She took a deep breath, letting the energy flow through her, calming her, strengthening her. The visions came again. The dead Luna standing tall, eyes filled with wisdom and sorrow, the wolves circling protectively around her. Lyra's presence was no longer distant. It was a part of her, guiding her, lending her courage. Brr. Kalen glanced at her, his eyes locking with hers. Do you trust yourself?
He asked.
Brr.
I do, she whispered. Together, they moved towards the approaching threat.
Inspiration. Kalen's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, not to restrain her, but to anchor her, to remind her that she was not alone. The rival Alpha's eyes widened as they saw the glow of the tattoo illuminating Ilara's wrist like a beacon.
You think you can wield the Luna's power? The rival Alpha sneered. You are just a girl. Ilara felt a spark of anger and determination flare within her.
She was no longer just a girl. She was the bearer of a legacy, the echo of a Luna who had lived and loved and protected her pack. She raised her wrist, letting the tattoo shine with silver light, and the air around them seemed to hum with energy. The wolves from the forest emerged, their eyes glowing, surrounding the rival clan. They did not attack. They did not need to, but their presence was a warning. The forest itself had risen to protect her, drawn by the bond she carried. The rival Alpha hesitated, his confidence wavering in the face of power he did not understand. Kalen moved to her side, his hand brushing hers, lending her strength. Brr. You are not alone, he said. Use the gift, Ilara. Brr.
Let it guide you, not consume you. Ilara closed her eyes, feeling the surge of the tattoo.
Brr. She focused, letting the power flow through her not as a weapon, but as a shield. The light from her wrist expanded, bathing the forest and the battlements in silver brilliance. Brr. The rival Alpha and his followers stepped back, fear creeping into their eyes. Then came a voice, a soft, haunting whisper, echoing in her mind. Brr. Do you claim my fate, or destroy it? Ilara opened her eyes. Brr. It was Lyra, the dead Luna, speaking through the bond they shared. The vision of Lyra appeared before her, a shimmering figure bathed in moonlight, her eyes filled with sadness and hope. I will honor you, Ilara whispered. I will not let your strength be forgotten. The rival Alpha let out a frustrated roar and lunged forward, but the wolves moved as one, forming a protective barrier. Kalen stepped forward as well, his presence commanding and unyielding. Together they created a wall of power, unity, and determination. Ilara felt the tattoo's energy coursing through her, through Kalen, through the wolves. It was no longer just hers, it was theirs, a force of life, legacy, and courage. The rival Alpha faltered, realizing that he could not claim what had been protected by love, trust, and history. The battle did not last long. The rival Alpha and his followers fled into the shadows, the forest swallowing them. The wolves howled, a chorus of victory and relief, echoing under the silver moon. Kalen turned to Ilara, his dark eyes softening, pride and admiration shining through. You did it, he said. You controlled it. You honored her. Ilara's chest heaved with exhaustion and relief. She looked at her wrist, the tattoo now pulsing gently, no longer overwhelming, no longer urgent. It had fulfilled its purpose for this night. She felt a sense of peace, a connection to the Luna that was no longer frightening, but empowering. You were magnificent, Kalen said, his voice low, almost reverent.
Stronger than even I imagined.
Ilara looked at him, feeling a warmth in her chest she could not name. I could not have done it without you, she whispered.
Brr. Kalen stepped closer, his hand brushing hers, not on the tattoo, but on her arm, anchoring her in the moment. You did this yourself,
he said.
I only helped you see what was already there. You have the strength, the courage, and the heart of a Luna. Inspiration. And now the kingdom knows it as well.
The wind swept through the balcony, carrying the distant howls of wolves and the soft rustle of the forest.
Elara closed her eyes, letting the energy of the night settle within her, feeling a bond that was deeper than fear or power. Something that had grown between her and Kalen, born of trust, respect, and shared destiny. Inspiration. As the first light of dawn touched the horizon, the moon's glow softened, and the tattoo on her wrist pulsed gently one last time. It was no longer a mark of fear, but a symbol of strength, legacy, and choice. Brr.
She was no longer just the girl with the Luna's name. She was its bearer, its protector, and its living echo. Kalen placed a hand lightly on her shoulder.
Inspiration. Rest now, he said. The dawn brings new challenges, but tonight you have earned this peace. Elara nodded, her heart full of a new understanding. Inspiration. She had faced fear, embraced power, and learned to trust herself. She had also learned to trust Kalen, not only as her protector, but as someone who had shared this journey with her, who had seen her strength and believed in it even when she doubted herself. As she lay in her chamber staring at the ceiling, she felt the quiet presence of Lyra, the dead Luna, still within her, whispering approval and guidance. She understood now that the Luna's legacy was not a curse, but a gift she could choose to honor, shape, and share. And somewhere deep in the castle, Kalen watched the sun rise from the battlements, thinking of her, feeling the bond that had grown between them, and knowing that together they had rewritten the course of their destinies. The kingdom would never be the same, and neither would they. But as the light of dawn spilled across the stones in the forest, Elara knew one thing for certain. She was no longer afraid. She was ready. Inspiration. She was whole. And the moon's redemption had been won, not just for the dead Luna, but for her, for Kalen, and for the future that they would face together. The tattoo no longer burned. It pulsed softly, a heartbeat of legacy, a guide for what was to come, and a promise that fate could be chosen, not merely endured. Parade. The moon dipped behind the mountains, but its light remained in her heart. And the kingdom, the forest, and the pack of wolves knew that a new era had begun.